Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Traveling Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. Today, I am in New London, Connecticut at Fort Trumbull on the west end of the Thames River. Okay, some of you might have heard of Fort Trumbull before, so let me give you a little teeny bit of a background of what's going on here, okay? Now, I'm sure you've heard of the American Revolutionary War, right? We the colonists, were fighting the English, right? This fort right here was this like earthen works, right? I guess you could say it was like the first defense. Not a whole lot, right, to stop the British. Maybe that's like deterrent, like they're going to have to work a little bit, maybe lose a couple people. But, the number one Navy in the world, probably not going to stop England, the number one Navy in the world, okay? So what's going on here is when the British and the colonists go at it in the American Revolutionary War in Connecticut, we've got this guy, a governor named Jonathan Trumbull out of Lebanon, Connecticut, I believe, right? Jonathan Trumbull, right? This fort's named after him. He's the only governor in the 13 colonies that stands up to the British and says, no way, I'm not going to do what you say. Connecticut's going to be independent, right? We're going to freaking fight with George Washington. Kind of going to help you beat George Washington. We're going to fight and supply George Washington. And Connecticut was very good at supplying. You'll see why in a minute. Connecticut's called the provision state, okay? So some people say, well, maybe Rhode Island kind of jumped in out there too eventually and kind of helped George Washington and all those guys too. That's kind of like debated back and forth. But definitely Connecticut, the governor, Trumbull, he was the main guy, right? This fort's named after him. I mean, think about it. Even Benjamin Franklin's son, who was the governor of New Jersey, was like, no, it's suicide, right? I'm going to just stay with England. I'm going to work for England, right? So I guess that makes them a loyalist, right? But imagine most of the governors were like, no, we can't risk it. I mean, it must have been so disheartening for George Washington and his Continental Army, these governors saying we can't risk it. But the Connecticut governor says, yes, I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to help George Washington. I'm going to supply George Washington. And one of the geography advantages was that New London is a deep water port. It was one of the busiest ports up here in New England, where we had enormous activity and supplies going all over the place. And we heavily supplied George Washington and got the nickname the Provision State. Now, I know some people know Connecticut as the Constitution State, right? But it's also known as the Provision State, where we kept George Washington in business, right? Supplying him. And one of the ways we supplied him was right here from this deep water port right here in New London, Connecticut. Super vital, right? And we're going to find out during the American Revolutionary War and the War of 1812 that the fort here is not exactly up to it, even though it will be rebuilt again, right? So now, another big thing here, with this being a deep water port, being crazy, super crazy busy, right? Connecticut, this is going to be pretty much like the headquarters, at least the informal headquarters of the Connecticut Pirates, right? Now Governor Trumbull gave them a letter of marque, which means we call them privateers. But that's not what England called them, right? England called them pirates. Those were the Connecticut Pirates, right? This was pretty much the Connecticut headquarters of the pirates. And England said, we need to do something about that. I mean, they were stealing, these Connecticut pirates probably stole over 600 English ships, right? It took those ships, took the supplies off those ships, and pretty much kept supplying George Washington's Continental Army and building the economy, right? And really, really hurting England's economy, right? So England kept saying, we got to do something about those Connecticut pirates, right? They're crazy. And that New London, that being the Connecticut headquarters of the pirates, we got to do something about that. So eventually, some of you guys know the story from the American hero, Benedict Arnold, right? Who goes to a zero, at least here in the New London people's eyes. He's going to be beyond a traitor, where Benedict Arnold's going to invade New London He wants to crush the Connecticut spirit. He wants to crush and punish the Connecticut people. He wants them to stop. He wants to crush the supply lines of the provision state that's supplying George Washington, right? And he wants to crush the pirates that are causing havoc. Remember, we didn't have a navy. We didn't have a navy, and it was brilliant to give letters of marque and go to privateers where they go out there with their own boats, their own men, and whatever they can steal from the English, they get to keep half, and they give the other half to like George Washington, right? The government, I guess you could say. It was brilliant. I mean, you don't have a navy. You don't have the resources. What do? You just say it's impossible, or do you find another way? And they did. They found another way. And Benedict Arnold, one of his tasks, it wasn't a solo task, but one of his many tasks was to do something about those Connecticut pirates in New London, right? Now, Benedict Arnold was a very smart man and very wise to the way of Connecticut because he was born and raised there in Connecticut, and he knew the warning system here in New London, right? If, you fire one cannon, no big deal. What is that? Probably nothing. If you fire two cannons, that means the enemy's coming. So start rushing the militia, right, to wherever they need to go to protect New London. But if you fire three cannon, that means that the privateers are returning home with their booty, their bounty, whatever you want to call it. They're returning home, and people are going to get paid. It's going to be a great day, right? The privateers are coming back. So as Benedict Arnold, right, who was a turncoat, red lobster, or whatever they call it, all those dirty, bad names they say about people that do that sort of thing. Benedict Arnold, he's coming in, right? He's not flying the English ship, all the English flags, trying to, be deceptive. And he comes in, he gets close, and when he's close, people recognize him and say, oh, wow, and they fired the two cannons. Like, here comes Benedict Arnold. Oh, my gosh. They fire the two cannons. And Benedict Arnold's smart enough and aware enough of what's going on that he fires a cannon at the end of the second firing of the colonists. So it sounds like three cannons being fired, right? And when three cannons being fired, it means no alarm. Don't worry about it. That shows ships approaching are just privateers. The Connecticut privateers, again, which England calls the pirates, right? The pirates are coming. No, they're the good guys. They're the good pirates, right? The privateers are coming. And there's going to be lots of, stuff to share and money and all that stuff, right? So they don't rally. The militia doesn't come running to protect anything. So New London's just totally caught off guard when Benedict Arnold shows up with the English Navy to attack Fort Trumbull, attack New London, right? And this is really, really bad because right here, remember, and this is just like earthworks. It's not going to stop the best Navy in the world. So they're going to be they're overwhelmed. So they're going to flee. And they're going to flee across the river. I think you might be able to see there's now Blisk back there. Across the river there. That is Fort Griswold, right? This was called the Twin Forts. Any boat that tried to sail up the Connecticut River here would get attacked by Fort Griswold on one side and Fort Trumbull on the other side by the Twin Forts, right? But what happened again, Benedict Arnold was a sneaky dude, very smart dude. He comes, he gets in here, people here got to flee. They go over there to Fort Griswold, and then you're going to get what's called the Groton Heights Massacre. Right? Legend over there is going to be stabbed with his own sword after giving up. His slave's going to try to save him, and they're going to kill his slave, right? And this is pretty much everybody. Everybody there had already given up, and they kill them all. And it becomes the bloodiest day in Connecticut history. Right there, the bloodiest day in Connecticut history is the Groton Heights Massacre. In New London is going to be burned to the ground. It's going to be crazy, right? Now, we are going to eventually win that war. England just kind of goes away. After a while, they get tired of fighting, basically it's like another world war, right? Spain's fighting, Netherlands are fighting them, right? The French, obviously, are fighting them. So they're going to go away. But many years later, there's going to be the War of 1812. Now, there's going to be another fort here. It's going to be better than the earthworks, but it's still going to have a lot of weaknesses. The British are going to be able to blockade us, right out there. They're going to be able to blockade us and really hurt us in the War of 1812. So in 1839, they're like, we got to rebuild the fort to make it even better to what's called the Third System Coastal Defense, right? And that's kind of like what you're seeing today, right? And it's a very, very unique style here. This is actually an Egyptian revival style. Very, very unique style for a fort, okay? And this is, now this is going to become like a real deterrent, all right? Civil War is going to come on. And again, Connecticut is the provision state, right? We're providing stuff for the armies, the northern armies, providing a lot for the northern armies because we're the provision state, right? And the Confederacy, who has a much, much weaker navy than what we have now, tables are turned, they've got their pirates that are attacking us, right? Again, we call them pirates. They call them, the South call them, they're privateers or legal privateers. And we're like, no, they're pirates, right? Tables are turned. They're Southern pirates. But those pirates, they're not going to mess with Connecticut. They're not going to mess with New London because of this fort. There's just no way, right? First of all, they have a hard time even getting up here to the north. But there's no way anybody's going to mess with New London again with this fort sitting right here. And the Confederate pirates, privateers, are in no position to try to attack Connecticut or New London here with this fort being here, right? Now, World War II comes along, and this is right here going to be the Merchant Marine Officer Training Site, right? The Cold War comes along, and this is going to be the headquarters of the Underwater Sound Laboratory, right? This is the Cold War. Cold War's going on. This is like the nuclear subs are happening. This is sonar was developed here, basically the ears of our Navy, the ears of our subs, and the ears of our nuclear submarines, with sonar being developed right here. So this goes from like a cannon's fort to like a high-tech fort right here in the Cold War, right? The original Coast Guard was here for a bunch of years. Now it's like right down the road, the Coast Guard. And in 2000, this was named a state park, right? And there's a lot of stuff going on in today. You got like a fishing pier down there. You get concerts are being held here. You got a Thames, like a vintage baseball team. The Thames baseball team play baseball games on this property. There's an elevator in the fort to go up and check out the upper level of the fort. And I just walked in here. It's free. Just walk in here. You check it out. There's so much stuff. And if you're willing to do a short little drive, just go right over there. You can check out Fort Griswold too, with that big obelisk right over my shoulder. You can check that out too. It's right over there. There's a lot of stuff to see here. So, definitely when I do my Travel in Time with Dan show, love to mix travel with history, leadership, obviously, and me. This New London area is a gorgeous area. You should definitely come down and check it out. This Fort Trumbull, Fort Griswold, what's left of it's just some earthworks over there, some mounds. But this one's big and beautiful. It's still here. It's beautiful, right? Definitely come down. Definitely worth traveling down here and seeing it. History, I've already given you a bunch of history on this. So what's the leadership lesson? The leadership lesson is a great leader or great leaders prepare before the crisis. Right? They saw that there were weaknesses. 1776, definitely couldn't stop the British. 1812, better fort, right? But they were still able to blockade. And they said, no more, right? We're building this up. Anybody comes over here, we're going to just bomb them, right? We're going to cannon them, bomb them, and they're just not going to mess with us anymore. And that's what it is. So, like great leaders, they prepare before a crisis, right? And this fort just keeps doing that, even with the high tech. And now today, like I said, it's a great state park. All right, everybody. Thank you for spending time with me today on the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history and leadership. And, of course, me, Dan Blanchard. I'll be back real soon from another great location. And until then, you take care, and I'll see you later.